One of my most vivid recollections of high school physics class was the day that we showed up, and it looked like there was a blowgun sitting at the front of the class. Mr. Davidson, or Phreddie Physics as he was called, had all kinds of wonderful devices to demonstrate the way the world worked to us. And it looked like there was a blowgun at the front. But that couldn't be right. And yet, he told us that we'd be investigating projectile motion, and in fact, he would be using a blowgun in order to do it. Of course, inspired by Mr. Davidson, I have a blowgun to demonstrate this for my students as well. So if we take an object, and we give it a little push to the right, and we allow it to fall, we'll find that it falls a little bit more in each time interval. So it moves a little bit to the right, and it falls faster and faster and faster toward the ground. If we push it a little bit harder to the right, we see it goes farther to the right. But if we look at where it is vertically, it's always at the same height as the first object. And if we push it harder again, we see the exact same thing. It goes further to the right. But if we look at the heights, we find that the object's always at the same height. So if we take our blowgun, and we have an object that's at a given height, and we take a second object and we aim the blowgun at that, and we set it up so that blue object begins to fall as soon as the red object leaves the blowgun. What's going to happen is the red object's going to fall a little bit as it travels to the right. The blue object will fall the exact same amount. The red object travels a little bit further to the right, falls a little bit further, and the blue object falls a little bit further. And then the red object travels a little bit further, the blue object falls, and they're always at the same height. So what that means is that if we set this up properly, their paths will intersect. And of course what that means is that the two objects will collide. So we should have a point where those two things crash together. So we set it up. We have a blowgun on the left, we have a can on the right, and the can is held up by an electromagnet. When it's fired, we see that the can is hit by the projectile. We can watch it a little bit slower, and we see that the projectile runs into the can and deflects it slightly to the right. And so what we have is we've confirmed the fact that two objects are going to fall at the same rate, regardless of whether it's dropped or launched. The production of these videos has been generously supported by the Nova Scotia Teachers Union through the Program Development Assistance Fund.